Before I start the story, who do you think would win, 100 men or one gorilla, and why? Here's a quick preview while you comment your thoughts. They thought it was a game, until the cage opened, and a 500-pound gorilla stepped into the sand. Now, under the Golden Dome, the only rule is survive, and the prize is watching. The wealthy watch as the show unfolds. Millions of dollars are being wagered to answer the question. Who would win, 100 men or one gorilla? Noah's fingers trembled as he scrolled through his mother's medical bills on his cracked phone screen. $37,000. The number hadn't changed since yesterday, or the day before, but he kept checking as if some divine intervention might erase the debt. The hospital had already sold it to collectors. 3 voicemails today alone, each more threatening than the last. Are you still staring at that thing? Zeke dropped onto the couch beside him, beer in hand, the ancient springs groaning under his weight. Bills don't shrink when you glare at them, brother. Noah locked his screen and pushed it away. Their apartment, if you could dignify the mold-riddled studio with such a term, felt smaller every day. The blinking fluorescent in the kitchenette cast everything in a sickly pallor, highlighting the water stains that mapped the ceiling like alien continents. Got something that might interest you, Zeke said, sliding his own phone across the coffee table. Found it on one of those deep forums. Legit opportunity. Noah squinted at the screen, a minimalist black website with gold text. No images, no company name, just 3 lines: 100 men, one challenge, one survivor walks away with $5 million. Below it, a button APLY. It's a scam, Noah said, pushing the phone back. Delete that before they steal your data. Zeke grinned, the chipped tooth from his cage, fighting days giving him a predatory look. Already vetted it. Remember Darius from my old gym? His cousin did one of these last year. Different challenges, same organizers. Came back with enough cash to disappear forever. Then why are you still here? Noah asked. Because. Zeke leaned forward, eyes bright with something Noah hadn't seen since before the economic collapse. They only open applications once every few months. Invite-only links that expire in 24 hours. He tapped the screen. 17 hours left. Noah stood and walked to their grimy window. 3 stories below, the street pulsed with the desperation of people who had long since given up hoping. A man rifled through garbage as 2 private security guards watched impassively from the corner, protecting the higher-end shops that somehow still operated. What's the challenge? Noah asked, not turning around. Does it matter? 5 million. No. Your mom gets her treatments. We get out of this hellhole. Noah turned back. It matters if it's illegal, but Zeke's laugh was hollow. Everything's illegal for people like us. Breathing costs money we don't have. He gestured around their apartment. This is the slow death they designed for us. At least this way we have a chance. Noah sat down again, staring at the phone. Tell me what you know. They call it the prize. Ultra-private entertainment for the kinds of people who own countries, not houses. They pit ordinary people against challenges. Word is it's physical, dangerous, but survivable. And the catch? No catch. Just sign an NDA, compete, survive. If you're the last one standing, you get the money. Clean, untraceable crypto. Noah's finger hovered over the screen. His mother's face flashed in his mind. Hollow-cheeked, eyes distant with pain medication that barely worked. The cheap kind. The kind insurance would cover after she'd lost her job. 5 million, he whispered. Each. Zeke corrected. We both apply. Double our chances. Noah pressed the button. 3 days later, they were blindfolded in the back of a luxury SUV with tinted windows. The air conditioning blasted cold against Noah's face, a stark contrast to the sweltering heat outside. The leather seats felt foreign against his worn jeans. How much longer? He asked no one in particular. Patience, Mr. Chen, came the driver's voice, accent unplaceable. We're nearly at the airfield. After the application, which had required blood samples, medical history, and signing documents that would make a lawyer faint. They'd been instructed to pack nothing. Just show up at coordinates sent to their phones at exactly 5:30 in the morning. You good? Zeke's voice came from beside him. Yeah, no lied. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, but desperation had a way of silencing reason. The SUV slowed, then stopped. Doors opened. Hands guided them out, across what felt like concrete, up metal stairs. The unmistakable whine of jet engines filled the air. Gentlemen, you may remove your blindfolds once we're airborne, a female voice announced as they were led to seats. There are 98 other contestants on your flight. Please refrain from discussing personal details or the nature of the competition. Noah's heart raced. What had seemed like an abstract risk was rapidly solidifying into reality. He felt the hum of the aircraft coming to life beneath him. Last chance to back out, Zeke whispered, barely audible over the engines. No thought of his mother, of the collection calls, of the apartment that reeked of slow decay. No going back, he replied. The jet accelerated down the runway, pressing them into their seats. Noah felt his stomach lurch as they lifted into the air, leaving behind everything familiar, and he hoped their old lives of quiet desperation. 13 hours later, they descended. The cabin had been eerily quiet during the flight. 100 men, each wrapped in their own thoughts, their own reasons for being there. Noah had studied them when allowed to remove his blindfold. Laborers with calloused hands, ex-military with 1,000-yard stares, desperate office workers like himself, and a few whose hungry eyes suggested they were there for something beyond money. The plane touched down with a jolt that rattled Noah's teeth. Dessert heat immediately seeped into the cabin as the doors opened. "Welcome to your destination," announced the same female voice from before. "Please form a single line and follow the guides. Any attempt to determine your location will result in immediate disqualification." They shuffled out into blinding sunlight. Noah squinted through sweat already beading on his forehead. Sand stretched in every direction, meeting the sky at a hazy horizon. The only interruption to the desolate landscape was what appeared to be a massive golden dome, shimmering like a mirage in the distance. "Holy shit," Zeke muttered beside him. Was that real? Men in black tactical gear, faces obscured by balaclavas, directed them toward a convoy of rugged transport vehicles. Noah and Zeke were herded into one with 8 others. No one spoke as they bounced across the desert toward the gleaming structure. As they drew closer, Noah realized the scale of the dome was even more immense than it had first appeared. It had to be at least 500 feet in diameter, the gold surface catching the sun like a beacon. There were no windows, no visible entrances, just smooth, uninterrupted metal. "What do you think it is?" Noah finally asked Zeke as they disembarked at the base of the structure. "The arena," Zeke replied, eyes wide with equal parts fear and excitement. "It's gotta be." A seam appeared in the dome's surface, widening into a doorway. Cool air rushed out as they were ushered inside, through a sterile white corridor that curved gently. Following the dome's circumference, they emerged into what could only be described as a luxury locker room. 100 stations, each with a set of identical black athletic wear, water bottles, and basic toiletries. "Gentlemen," boomed a new voice from hidden speakers, "please change into the provided attire. Afterward, you will receive your final briefing." Noah found his station, labeled with his name, directly beside Zeke's. As he changed, he noticed cameras mounted in every corner of the ceiling. "They're really watching us," he whispered. "Of course they are," Zeke replied, pulling the black shirt over his head. "We're the entertainment." When all 100 men were changed and standing by their stations, the lights dimmed. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. A man in an impeccable suit, face obscured by a golden mask shaped like a grinning demon. "Welcome to the prize," the figure announced, voice digitally altered to sound inhuman. "You have each volunteered for the opportunity of a lifetime, The rules are simpler: survive and win $5 million. The hologram changed, showing the interior of the dome, a massive circular arena filled with artificial terrain, sand, rocks, shallow pools of water, and scattered vegetation. It looked like someone's twisted idea of a natural habitat. In 20 minutes, you will enter the arena through different access points. Once inside, you will face your challenge. The hologram shifted again, and Noah's blood ran cold. On the screen appeared a gorilla, but not like any he'd seen in documentaries or zoos. This beast stood at least 8 feet tall, with muscles that bulged unnaturally beneath its dark fur. Its eyes held an intelligence that seemed wrong, calculated. Most disturbing were its hands. Longer, more dexterous than they should be, ending in claws that gleamed like metal. "This is your opponent," the masked figure continued. 1,500 pounds of genetically modified primate. Trained for aggression, enhanced for power. Your challenge is simple: 100 men versus 1 gorilla. The last man standing receives the prize. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some men laughed nervously, others stood frozen. No weapons are provided or allowed. Alliances are permitted but not enforced. Remember, there is only one winner. The hologram dissolved, leaving them in stunned silence. "This can't be legal," No whispered. Zeke's expression had changed. Gone was the desperation of their apartment, replaced by something primal, hungry. "Who cares? Rules of nature now, brother." He stretched his arms, rolling his shoulders. 1 in 100 odds. Better than what we had back home. No wanted to argue, to point out the insanity of what they'd agreed to. But the doors around the perimeter of the locker room hissed open. Black-clad guards gestured for them to follow. "Time to earn our freedom," Zeke said, clapping No on the shoulder before joining the flow of men. No hesitated, then fell in line. As they were led through winding corridors toward the arena, he caught glimpses through small windows of another level above. Luxurious viewing boxes, where figures in expensive clothing mingled, holding champagne flutes, examining tablets with what appeared to be betting interfaces. The ultra-rich, wagering on their lives. The corridor narrowed, then opened into a small chamber with a single door ahead. No found himself grouped with 7 strangers. Zeke had been directed elsewhere. 30 seconds to entry, announced a voice from above. A man beside No vomited onto the floor. Another prayed quietly. The rest stood in tenser silence, eyes fixed on the door that would soon open. "Remember," said the guard as he prepared to unlock it, "only one walks away with the money." The door slid open, revealing blinding arena lights and the roar of hidden spectators. No stepped forward with the others, into the prize. What awaited them in that golden dome wasn't just a battle against a beast. It was the death of whatever humanity they had left. The artificial sun blazed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the arena floor. No's eyes adjust slowly to the brightness after the dim corridors. The arena was even more massive from within. At least 200 yards in diameter, the golden dome arching impossibly high above. The terrain was a grotesque parody of a natural habitat: jagged rock formations, patches of sparse vegetation, shallow pools of murky water, and vast stretches of sand, all arranged with a deliberate randomness that offered both hiding places and killing grounds. 100 men stood scattered throughout the arena, having entered through different access points. Noah scanned desperately for Zeke, but couldn't spot him among the distant figures. Some men were already forming groups, huddling together in whispered conference. Others stood alone, sizing up potential threats, both human and otherwise. A low hum filled the air as a circular section in the center of the arena began to descend, creating a pit about 20 feet deep. The crowd of hidden spectators, invisible behind one-way glass panels that formed the lower portion of the dome, grew quieter in anticipation. "Laddies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed, "the moment you've wagered for, we present the prize." The pit rose again, and on it stood the gorilla. Even from 50 yards away, Noah felt his breath catch. It was significantly larger than the hologram had suggested, its hunched posture failing to conceal its monstrous size. Its fur was not the natural black of a mountain gorilla, but an oily obsidian that seemed to absorb light. Metal implants gleamed at its joints, and a thick scar ran from its forehead to its jaw, giving its face a perpetual snarl. Most disturbing were its eyes, unnaturally intelligent and blazing with something Noah recognized immediately: hatred. The beast surveyed the arena with methodical precision, nostrils flaring as it scented the air. Then, with deliberate slowness, it rose to its full height, easily 8 feet tall, and beat its chest. The sound echoed like thunder against the dome. For 3 agonizing seconds no one moved. Then the gorilla dropped to all fours and charged toward the nearest cluster of men. Pandemonium erupted. The group scattered, but one man, heavyset, middle-aged, wasn't fast enough. The gorilla seized him by the ankle with one massive hand. What followed was so swift and brutal that Noah's brain struggled to process it. A whip-like motion, a spray of crimson against golden walls, and a broken body flung 30 feet through the air. Screams filled the arena. Men ran in all directions, seeking cover behind rocks or diving into the shallow pools. Noah felt his legs moving before his mind had fully registered the decision. Sprinting toward a craggy outcropping that offered some concealment, he pressed his back against the rough stone, heart hammering so violently he feared it might burst from his chest. The sounds of chaos surrounded him: shouts, splashing water, the gorilla's deep, rumbling growls, and occasionally, the wet crack of bone giving way to unnatural force. "Quit the spectacle, isn't it?" A cool female voice came through hidden speakers near his position. "Our viewers find your particular corner of the arena intriguing." Noah looked up, noticing for the first time the small camera drones hovering high above, tracking movements like mechanical vultures. "You seem analytical, Mr. Chen. That might serve you well. Our data suggests you have a 17% higher survival probability than the average contestant." The realization hit Noah like ice water. They were tracking them, analyzing them, turning their struggle into statistics for gambling. A shadow fell across the sand beside him. Noah turned to find 3 men approaching, a tall, wiry figure leading 2 burlier companions. "Room for a few more behind that rock?" the leader asked, his accent Eastern European. Noah hesitated, then nodded. Strength in numbers seemed the only logical strategy against such an opponent. "Mikhail," the man said simply, extending a hand as he crouched beside Noah. "Former Special Forces. Those 2 are Damon and Quan. We think we have a plan." "Noah," he replied, shaking the offered hand. "What kind of plan works against that?" A chilling scream from across the arena punctuated his question. The gorilla had cornered another victim. "Divide and exhaust," Mikhail explained. "The creature is strong but must have limitations. We coordinate attack from multiple angles, wear it down. Eventually, it will tire. And then we turn on each other." Noah asked. Mikhail's smile was cold. "Let's survive the animal first." A mechanical whirring overhead drew their attention. A small drone descended, different from the camera models, carrying a package suspended by a thin cable. It hovered directly above their position. "What is that?" Damon asked, his voice tight with suspicion. The package detached, landing softly in the sand beside them. Mikhail cautiously opened it to reveal 4 metal water bottles, energy bars, and what appeared to be a small medical kit. "Consider this an investment in your survival, gentlemen," the female voice announced. "A consortium of our viewers finds your strategy promising. They've agreed to sponsor your alliance." Noah stared at the supplies in disbelief. "They're picking favorites." "Of course they are," Mikhail replied, distributing the water. "This isn't just a fight, it's a show. We're performers now." Across the arena Zeke had found his own alliance. 5 men who shared his more aggressive mindset. Unlike Noah's group, they weren't hiding, they were hunting. "The thing's got patterns," explained the leader, a former cage fighter named Rex, as they moved from cover to cover. It attacks, kills, then retreats to higher ground to survey. If we time it right, we can set up an ambush during its next retreat. Zeke nodded, adrenaline flooding his system. The fear that had initially gripped him was transforming into something else. A primal excitement he'd only experienced in his most brutal fights. Here, finally, was a challenge worthy of the rage he'd carried his entire life. "What's your stake in this?" asked another man in their group. Young, with a gang tattoo on his neck, medical bills, Zeke replied shortly. "You. Debt to the wrong people." The man said, 5 million buys a lot of forgiveness, or Rex silenced them with a hand gesture. The gorilla had just finished tearing apart a man who had tried to climb one of the artificial trees. Now, as predicted, it was moving toward a rocky plateau to survey its domain. "That's 7 down," Rex whispered. 3 to go. Zeke felt a twisted sense of gratitude toward the beast. Every death improved his odds. "Now," Rex commanded. The 6 men moved with coordinated precision, surrounding the plateau from different angles. The plan was simple: create a distraction, then attack the creature's legs with rocks they'd gathered, disable it, then finish it. Zeke was designated as one of the distractions. He stepped into the open, waving his arms and shouting obscenities. The gorilla's head snapped toward him, eyes narrowing with frightening intelligence. For a split second, Zeke locked eyes with the creature, and something passed between them. A recognition. They were the same, he realized. Predators forced to fight for others' entertainment. The gorilla charged with unexpected speed. Zeke's reflexes, honed by years of fighting, barely saved him as he rolled aside. The beast's claws raked the sand where he'd stood, leaving deep furrows. "No!" Rex shouted. The others emerged from hiding, hurling rocks at the gorilla's legs and back. Most connected with meaty thuds, but the creature seemed more annoyed than injured. It turned with shocking agility, seizing the gang, tattooed youth by his midsection. What happened next changed something fundamental in Zeke. The gorilla didn't simply kill the young man. It pulled him apart, methodically, almost curiously, as if studying the construction of a human body. The youth's screams turned to gurgles, then silence, as his insides became his outsides. Rex and the others fled. But Zeke remained frozen, not from fear but from a dark epiphany. In this dome, under these rules, humanity was a weakness. The gorilla wasn't the enemy, it was the teacher. 4 hours into the game, 52 men were dead. The arena floor was stained dark in places, the air thick with the metallic scent of blood and the sore stench of fear. The gorilla had become more strategic, herding panicked groups into dead ends before picking them apart. No's alliance had grown to 7, absorbing stragglers with useful skills. They'd received 2 more supply drops, including bandages that had saved Quan's life after a close encounter left him with a deep gash across his back. "It's learning our patterns," Mikhail observed as they relocated to a new position. Their strategy had shifted from confrontation to evasion, and the sponsors are getting bored. "How can you tell?" No asked. "The drone coverage is shifting. More cameras following the hunting parties, fewer on us." No had noticed other alliances forming throughout the arena. Some defensive like theirs, others aggressively pursuing the gorilla or, increasingly, other contestants. The rules hadn't changed, but the interpretation had. If only one person could win, why not eliminate the competition? The audience is divided. The female voice confirmed through nearby speakers. "Some appreciate your survival instincts, Mr. Chen. Others find your group unentertaining." "We're not here to entertain," No spat back. "Aren't you?" The voice replied smoothly. "Then why did you sign the contract?" A distant scream interrupted their conversation, but this time, it wasn't human. The gorilla bellowed in pain, the sound reverberating throughout the dome. "Someone hurt it," Damon whispered, something like hope flickering in his eyes. They cautiously moved to a vantage point, peering over a ridge of rocks. In a clearing below, the gorilla was favoring its right leg, dark blood matting the fur. Surrounding it were 8 men armed, with crude spears fashioned from broken branches, and leading them was Zeke. No felt his stomach lurch. His friend was barely recognizable. Zeke's face and chest were painted with streaks of blood, some his own, most not. His eyes held a feverish light, his movements fluid yet erratic. He directed his hunters with hand signals, coordinating their attacks with predatory efficiency. "That's not a survivor," Mikhail murmured. "That's a contestant who's enjoying the game." No watched in horror as Zeke's group herded the injured gorilla toward another alliance, creating a deliberate collision that left 4 men dead in the chaos. In the confusion, Zeke himself drove a spear into the back of another contestant. A direct human kill. "Oh my!" The female voice purred through the speakers. "It seems the game within the game has begun. How delightful." No turned away, bile rising in his throat. What had happened to the friend who had sat beside him in their apartment just days ago? The man below wasn't Zeke anymore. The dome had transformed him into something else entirely. A new drone descended toward their position, this one larger than the supply vehicles. It hovered menacingly before projecting a hologram. The masked figure from the briefing. "Attention contestants," the figure announced, voice broadcasting throughout the arena. "We're introducing a special incentive. Our viewers wish to accelerate the entertainment." The hologram changed to display a map of the arena with a glowing point at its center. "A weapon has been placed at this location, designed specifically to kill our prize attraction." The mask seemed to grin wider. "May the best man claim it." No exchanged glances with his allies. The message was clear. The audience was growing impatient with the slow attrition. They wanted a climax. "We should go for it," Quan argued. "It's our only chance." "It's bait," Mikhail countered. "They want us to converge for a bloodbath." As they debated, No spotted movement on the ridge opposite their position. Zeke stood alone, watching them through narrowed eyes. Blood dripped from a makeshift blade in his hand. When he saw No looking, his lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. He mouthed 3 words that chilled No to his core. Only one winner. Night was falling in the artificial ecosystem of the dome. The real game was just beginning. The artificial night in the dome was not true darkness. Instead, a ghostly blue illumination bathed the arena, casting long shadows that transformed ordinary terrain into monstrous silhouettes. Temperatures dropped dramatically, adding hypothermia to the contestants' growing list of concerns. The gorilla's black fur made it nearly invisible except when it moved across the pale sand, a shifting shadow that could materialize anywhere. Only 23 men remained alive after 12 hours. The alliances had solidified into 3 main groups, plus a handful of solo survivors hiding in the periphery. 17 corpses lay scattered across the arena floor. The rest had been dragged away by maintenance drones that emerged periodically from hidden panels in the walls. The audience demanded spectacle, not a charnel house. No's group had dwindled to 4. Damon had been taken during a savage night attack that seemed deliberately orchestrated by the gorilla. It had driven them from their shelter with a series of feints, then ambushed them from an impossible angle. Mikhail insisted the beast was being directed somehow, responding to signals or stimuli they couldn't perceive. "It's hunting too intelligently," he whispered as they huddled behind a rock formation, sharing their dwindling water supply. "Natural predators don't herd prey like this." No had stopped questioning the unnatural aspects of their situation hours ago. His world had contracted to a series of immediate concerns: thirst, exhaustion, the stinging gash across his forearm, and the knowledge that his childhood friend had become something monstrous. Zeke's hunting party now controlled the central plateau, where the weapon had been placed. Rather than use it, they had fortified the position, using the elevated ground to spot approaching threats. They had become as much a danger as the gorilla itself, having killed at least 5 contestants who attempted to claim the weapon. We need to move. Quan insisted, his voice thin with fatigue. The gash on his back had reopened, dark blood seeping through the makeshift bandages. They're going to find us if we stay. Who? No asked. Zeke or the gorilla? Does it matter anymore? Mikhail replied grimly. A mechanical whirring overhead signaled the approach of another drone. These had become less frequent as the contest progressed, the sponsors seemingly more selective with their investments as the field narrowed. This one hovered directly above their position, its camera lens reflecting the eerie blue light. Instead of dropping supplies, it projected a small hologram, a betting interface showing odds, beside each remaining contestant's face. No saw his own image with 17-1. Beneath it, Mikhail's chances were better at 8-1. Highest of all was Zeke at 3-1, his blood-streaked face wearing an expression of predatory focus. Lowest was a grainy image of the gorilla itself, 1-20. The drone projected a second imager, a map showing heat signatures throughout the arena. 3 clusters of human forms represented the remaining alliances. A larger, brighter heat signature, the gorilla, was moving with purpose toward the smallest group, just half a kilometer from their position. They're feeding us tactical information, Mikhail said. We, because the game's too slow, no, realized. They want us to make moves, create confrontations. The drone retracted its projections and released a small package before departing. Inside was a crude compass and a note with coordinates. Mikhail studied the items, then looked up with a grim expression. It's directing us to the weapon platform, directly through the territory of the group being hunted by the gorilla. Convenient. No muttered. We have a choice, Quan said. Stay here and die slowly, or move and die quickly. Or move and live, said the fourth member of their group, a quiet man named Ellis, who had joined them after losing his original alliance. It was the first opinion he'd offered since arriving. Noah looked at each of them in turn. They were filthy injured and exhausted, but still human. Unlike Zeke's group, they had maintained some core of decency throughout the ordeal. They had killed no one, had shared their supplies, had treated each other's wounds. We'll move. No decided, but not to the weapon. As Zeke stood at the edge of the plateau, scanning the darkened arena with eyes that had adjusted to hunt in the blue twilight. His body hummed with a clarity he'd never experienced before. Every sense was heightened, every movement economical. The pain from his various wounds had transformed into a sharp awareness of his own mortality that made each breath feel significant. Movement at 2 o'clock, reported one of his 3 remaining followers, a former Marine named Vickers. Looks like Chen's group. Zeke smiled. He'd been waiting for this confrontation, had steered events toward it with calculated violence. The weapon, a pneumatic spear gun designed to penetrate the gorilla's enhanced hide, remained untouched behind him. It was merely bait in his own game. They're not approaching directly, Vickers continued, tracking them through improvised binoculars fashioned from scavenged drone parts, circling toward the north ridge. They think they're being clever, Zeke replied. Typical no, always trying to outsmart rather than overpower. He had shed the last remnants of their friendship hours ago, when he'd watched No refuse to sacrifice an injured Quan despite the tactical advantage it would have provided. Such weakness had no place in the arena. The No he'd grown up with, shared an apartment with, was already dead. He just didn't know it yet. Should we intercept? Asked another member of his group, a hulking ex-convict whose name Zeke had never bothered learning. Names were irrelevant now, they were merely obstacles between him and victory. No, Zeke decided. Let them come closer. The gorilla is hunting the eastern group. By the time it finishes there, No will be in the open. We'll let them thin each other out. The truth, which Zeke kept to himself, was that he wanted to be the one to kill No personally. There was something poetic about it, closing the circle of their shared past. In the wall before the dome, they had been bound by circumstance and desperation. Here they would be severed by the same forces. A distant, wet tearing sound echoed across the arena, followed by screams that cut off abruptly. The Eastern Alliance was falling to the gorilla. "Won't be long now," Zeke murmured, checking the crude blade he'd fashioned from a broken drone propeller. Its edge gleamed dully in the blue light. No led his group along a narrow passage between two rock formations, moving as quietly as possible. The terrain here created a natural acoustic shadow, muffling their footsteps from both the plateau ahead and the killing ground behind them, where the gorilla was systematically eliminating the Eastern Alliance. "You're sure about this?" Mikhail asked softly. "We could still go for the weapon." "Zeke expects that." No replied. "He knows how I think." His plan was desperate but simple: bypass the plateau entirely and reach the far side of the arena, where the dome's curvature created a blind spot in the surveillance. There, according to Ellis, who claimed to have worked construction on similar structures, was an emergency maintenance hatch. Staff access for the crew that managed the artificial environment. "Even if we find it, it'll be locked," Quan had argued. "Everything electronic has a weakness," Ellis had replied, revealing a small circuit board he'd salvaged from a destroyed drone. "Especially when it's designed to open automatically in emergencies." It wasn't escape No was planning. That seemed impossible given the resources arrayed against them. It was leverage. Control of a maintenance entrance meant potential control of the systems that kept the dome functioning. If they could threaten that, perhaps they could force negotiations. A better plan than dying in the sand for the amusement of invisible billionaires. They were halfway to their destination when the screams from the eastern section ceased entirely. An unnatural silence fell over the arena, broken only by their cautious footsteps and labored breathing. "It's finished there," Michael whispered. "It will be hunting again soon." No nodded, increasing their pace slightly. The passage widened ahead, opening onto a stretch of exposed sand they would need to cross. Beyond it lay the curved wall of the dome and, hopefully, salvation. They were halfway across the open space when Noah heard it. A soft, rhythmic sound like heavy breathing. He froze, signaling the others to stop. 20 yards to their right, partially concealed by a withered tree, crouched the gorilla. It wasn't looking in their direction but appeared to be waiting. "Don't move." No breathed. The beast's shoulders rose and fell with each breath, the metal implants at its joints catching the blue light. Up close, No could see that its fur was patchy in places, revealing scarred skin underneath, evidence of the cruel experimentation that had created it. Despite his terror, he felt a momentary pang of empathy for the creature. It was as much a victim of this spectacle as they were. The gorilla's head turned slowly, its nostrils flaring as it scented the air. Its eyes, those unnaturally intelligent eyes, scanned the darkness, passing over their position once, twice, then locked directly on Noah's. Recognition flickered in those eyes. Not the blind rage from earlier, but something worse: a purpose. The gorilla had been waiting specifically for them. "Run!" No shouted as the beast launched itself toward them with terrifying speed. Ellis went down first, caught by a sweeping arm that sent him flying into a rock face with bone-shattering force. Quan managed 3 steps before the gorilla seized his injured back, fingers digging into the existing wound. His scream turned to a wet gurgle as the beast tore upward, separating his spine with surgical precision. Michael shoved No forward. "Go. Find the hatch." Then he turned to face the creature, a broken drone blade clutched in each hand. It was suicide, and both men knew it. No ran, the sounds of combat fading behind him. He reached the curved wall of the dome, and began moving along it, searching desperately for any sign of the maintenance access Ellis had described. The smooth golden surface offered no purchase, no visible seams or panels. A final, defiant shout from Mikhail ended in abrupt silence. No was alone. He pressed his hands against the dome wall, feeling for irregularities. Nothing. Had Ellis been wrong? Or worse, had he lied? Perhaps as part of some sponsor's twisted subplot. Heavy footsteps approached from behind. No turned, back pressed against the wall, to face his death. But it wasn't the gorilla that emerged from the shadows. It was Zeke. His childhood friend was barely recognizable beneath layers of dried blood and filth. A makeshift spear in one hand, a jagged blade in the other. His eyes were fever bright, his breathing steady despite the obvious exhaustion of his body. "Always running," Zeke said, his voice a hoarse rasp. "Always looking for the clever way out." "Zeke," No whispered. "What happened to you?" "I woke up." He gestured around the dome. "This is the truth of our world, No. Always has been. The strong survive. The rest are entertainment. We were friends. We were prisoners of the same cell. There's a difference." Zeke advanced slowly. "Only one winner, No. The sponsors are getting impatient." Behind Zeke, a shadow detached itself from the darkness. The gorilla moved with uncanny silence for its size, stalking forward on all fours. No saw it. Zeke did not. In that moment, No made a choice. He could warn his friend. The boy who had shared his lunch when bullies stole No's, the teenager who had stood beside him at his father's funeral, the man who had helped carry his mother to the hospital when she collapsed. Or he could remain silent and survive. "Zeke," he began. The gorilla struck with explosive force, seizing Zeke from behind. What followed was methodical dismemberment, the beast taking its time, almost curious in its savagery. Zeke's screams echoed against the dome as No pressed himself against the wall, frozen in horror. When it finished, the gorilla turned its attention to No. Blood, slick and panting, it studied him with those terrible intelligent eyes. It took a step forward, then another. No's hand, scrabbling desperately against the dome wall, felt a slight indentation, a nearly invisible seam, the maintenance hatch. He pressed against it, using his body to shield his movements from the cameras. Nothing happened. The gorilla was 10 feet away now, rising to its full height. No felt a strange calm settle over him. If this was the end, at least it would be quick. 5 feet. No's fingers found a small recess beside the seam. Inside was something smooth and round, a sensor. 3 feet. He pressed the circuit board Ellis had given him against the sensor. A faint click. A hiss of hydraulics. 1 foot. The panel slid open behind him just as the gorilla lunged. No fell backward through the opening, the beast's claws missing his face by inches. The hatch slid closed automatically, sealing with a pneumatic hiss that cut off the gorilla's raw mid-sound. No found himself in a sterile white corridor, harsh fluorescent lights a shock after hours in the blue twilight of the arena. A klaxon blared, red warning lights flashing along the ceiling. He had triggered an emergency protocol. 2 security guards rounded the corner, weapons raised. Their expressions shifted from alert to confused when they saw him. A blood-covered contestant where none should be. "We have a breach," one spoke into his radio. One contestant outside containment. No raised his hands slowly. "I'm the last one," he said. "The only survivor." 3 days later, No awoke in a windowless room, lying on a comfortable bed. His wounds had been treated, his body cleaned and fed. A neat stack of clothes, black athletic wear identical to what he had worn in the arena, sat on a chair beside the bed. The door opened, a woman entered, the same voice that had spoken to him through the arena speakers, he realized. "Congratulations, Mr. Chen," she said, her smile professional but cold. "You've made quite an impression on our sponsors, Dark." "The money," No said, his voice rough from disuse. "When do I get it?" The woman's smile widened. "There seems to be a misunderstanding. You didn't win, Mr. Chen. You cheated." "I survived," he protested. "That was the rule. The rule was last man standing. You left the arena. Technically, you were disqualified the moment you breached containment." She consulted a tablet. "However, your resourcefulness has impressed our organization. We have a position for someone with your adaptability." "What position?" "Trainer," she replied simply. "For our next event, You see, Mr. Shen, the spectacle must continue. Our clients demand novelty, excitement, and who better to prepare the next batch of contestants than someone who has experienced the arena firsthand. The door opened again. 2 guards entered, followed by a man pushing a cart with a small television monitor. The screen showed a loading bay where a transport plane was discharging passengers. Blindfolded men being led in single file toward the facility. 100 new volunteers, the woman explained, this time with a special twist. Care to guess? No felt sick. What twist? She tapped her tablet, and the monitor image changed to a promotional video. Dramatic music played over footage from the previous event, specifically, clips of No evading the gorilla, forming alliances, finding the maintenance hatch. A voice, overboomed. Can you outsmart The Sui Vivar? 101 gorilla, and this time one champion who knows all the tricks. The final frame showed No's face, cleaned up and heroic looking, with the tagline, "The prize is season 2. Only the clever survive. You didn't win the money," the woman said softly. You became the show. No closed his eyes, the truth settling over him like the dome itself. Inescapable, suffocating. He had survived the arena only to become part of the machine that powered it. Get dressed, the woman instructed, heading for the door. Orientation begins in 20 minutes. You'll want to prepare. These contestants have been studying your methods. They're hungry for the prize. She paused at the threshold. Oh, and don't get any ideas about revealing our operation or location. The implant we placed during your medical treatment ensures your cooperation. When she was gone, No moved to the small bathroom mirror to examine himself. A thin scar marked his temple, fresh, still slightly red. Beneath it, he could feel something hard and foreign, just under the skin. In the arena, he had maintained his humanity while others lost theirs. He had refused to kill, had tried to save his friends, had even felt empathy for the tortured creature forced to hunt them. He had clung to the belief that survival didn't require becoming a monster. Now he understood Zeke's transformation. It hadn't been weakness or cruelty that changed his friend. It was clarity. Zeke had recognized the truth of their situation faster than Noah had. In the world of the prize, humanity itself was the weakness. Noah stared at his reflection, at the dead eyes looking back at him, and made a silent promise. He would play their game, would train their contestants, would become the face of their spectacle, and he would find a way to bring the golden dome crashing down around them all. You didn't win. You became part of the show.
It takes a lot of time to create these videos. I would really appreciate your support. All I ask for is a quick like on the video and subscribe. Thank you so much.